Srila Prabhupada said a few amazing things about chanting, and I wanted to discuss this because many devotees, I think, minimize their japa because they don't really understand how important it is for their spiritual life. So the purpose of this video is really to shake you up a little bit. And of course, we all know how important chanting is, but I think at the same time, we may not know completely, or maybe we know it in our head, but we don't know it in our heart. So Prabhupada once said that because you have taken so many drugs and you've had illicit sex, without the chanting of Hare Krishna, you couldn't do anything. Now that's interesting. Couldn't do anything. What does that mean? We couldn't get up early. We couldn't be examples for people, which means our preaching wouldn't be effective. We couldn't really spread Krishna consciousness either to ourselves or to others. So that's a very powerful statement, that we couldn't do anything without the chanting of Hare Krishna. He said something else, and I've mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again because it's very, very important. He said, if you're having spiritual difficulty, then something is missing in the process. Because the process will enable you to live at least a sattvic life. And in sattva guna, you won't have problems. So if you're not doing the process properly, that means probably you're engaged in activities of rajas and tamas. And once you get into rajas and tamas, that's where all the difficulties arise. That's why Prabhupada had asked us to follow the four regulative principles, because those are all tamasic activities. And if you're trying to chant purely and you're living under the influence of tamagun, it doesn't work. Your chanting isn't pure. So once the devotee was having difficulty, and Prabhupada analyzed the difficulty and therefore concluded that you must be chanting offensively. Because if you were chanting properly, at least namabhas, at least trying to chant well, you wouldn't have these problems, because at least you would be sattvic. And so what's happening, well, we should realize that so many of the problems we're having are because we're connecting ourselves through our actions or through our thinking to the modes of nature, the lower modes of nature. So, if we're having a problem, we go back and we look at where we are off in our sadhana, and I would think most of us are off in our japa. At least that's the first place to look. So, this is I just wanted to make this simple, but I wanted to kind of shake things up a little bit. That without the holy name, okay, let's just meditate on this. Let's imagine we're all devotees in ISKCON, but there's no Maha Mantra. There may be other mantras, but there's no Maha Mantra. So we just take away the Maha Mantra, take away the Maha Mantra from your life, and ask yourself, what would my life be like now without the Maha Mantra? And then let's all of us ask ourselves, what would the Hare Krishna movement be? Well, it wouldn't be the Hare Krishna movement anymore. But what would ISKCON be without the Maha Mantra? Just take the Maha Mantra away. And we still have ISKCON, we have our archics, we have our programs. What would the movement be like? Then we may question whether we could even maintain the movement, whether we would have the strength to maintain it. Because Prabhupada's saying, without the Maha Mantra, we wouldn't be able to do anything. Could we actually become Brahmins without the Maha Mantra and therefore worship the deity? Could we actually set the proper example for other people without the Maha Mantra? In other words, basically Prabhupada's saying, without the Maha Mantra, you can't advance. Now, probably the most powerful thing that Prabhupada said is 16 rounds, 4 regulative principles. If you follow the 4 regulative principles, forms the foundation upon which you can chant well. So Prabhupada said 4 principles, 16 rounds, you'll go back to Godhead. What does that mean? Well, we might say, well, the Prabhupada will take us. He'll guarantee if we do that. which is true, but there's a little more there, that we will become purified, we will become Krishna conscious. And Shastra says, chanting the holy name can bring you to the level of prema. That's very powerful. There's nothing else in Kali Yuga that is going to bring any of us to prema. What to speak of prema in the mood of the residents of Braja. So just meditating on the fact that fallen souls like ourselves, or fallen souls like Jagai and Madhai, can achieve prema solely or primarily by chanting the Mahamantra. That's amazing. I mean, just meditate on that. It says so much. The last thing I want to say is this is a quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who said, the best sadhana is chanting the holy name. And any sadhana is good, considered good, if it supports, if it enables, if it helps us chant the holy name. And if it doesn't, if in any way it gets in the way, you would think, well, how could sadhana get in the way? Well, anyway, he's saying if it doesn't support the chanting of the holy name, if it doesn't help us in the chanting holy name, it should be rejected. It shouldn't even be considered sadhana. It's not worthwhile. So the real sadhana is the holy name. It's the best sadhana. And all sadhana is meant to help us chant the holy name. You probably know, you've probably heard this or read this, that when Prabhupada installed Krishna Balaram in 1975, he got so many Brahmins to do puja there, so the installation would be accepted by people in Vrindavan as bona fide. And Prabhupada had written that in spite of all the mantras they were chanting, he didn't consider that really valuable. What he considered valuable was the holy name. During Prabhupada's initiation, the same thing happened. I think it was his sannyas initiation. Krishnadas Babaji was chanting, and then they asked him to stop chanting so they could chant other mantras, and Prabhupada motioned to him, keep chanting. So Prabhupada had extreme faith in the holy name. He sent us all over the world, unqualified people, with the holy name. Here, you have this holy name, this is Krishna, this will do everything. You can spread Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, how could we do it? And so the greatest thing that Krishna gives us, aside from all the material things that Krishna gives us to maintain us, really the greatest thing Krishna gives us is the holy name, because within the holy name is love. And love of Krishna is really the goal. We don't want Krishna, we want love of Krishna. Within the holy name we get love of Krishna. And so without properly chanting, we're not going to get it. So how important is chanting? It's essentially important. Essentially important. And I think many of us, although we know that, but practically we don't chant in a way that we see it as essentially important. But without the holy name, without proper chanting, we won't become Krishna conscious. So therefore, it is essentially important. So I would just humbly suggest to all of us that we take those 16 rounds very seriously, and we put our heart and soul into chanting. We absorb ourselves. We turn off our world when we chant, and we give everything to the holy name, and it will give everything back to us.